Huh, so I get to play as an athletic guy. That's pretty cool. I guess I'll shoot some hoops. Nah, this is boring. Oh cool, I have a hot girlfriend. Wait, someone took my bag? Who does that? Okay, do they go this way? Whoa, this looks kind of shady. Should I maybe go back and call the police? Nah, that would be the smart thing to do. I'll just go down and check things out myself. Oh no, evil monsters are down here. What a shock, and I'm dead. Maybe. And that's how Obscure opens. It's not a bad opening, honestly, and it does set things up rather nicely, both from a gameplay and narrative perspective. The guy goes missing, and his friends end up staying after school in order to try to find him. The best way I can describe this game is imagine if Silent Hill took place in a high school. That's a pretty good way of summarizing what Obscure is. The kids find themselves trapped in the school and must explore and try to find a way out. Along the way, they must occasionally fight mysterious creatures that are vulnerable to light. The game does a lot right. It has a fairly good atmosphere, and the combat is very reminiscent of Silent Hill, in that it lets you defend yourself, but never lets you feel too powerful. The monsters only being vulnerable to light sounds like it would make the game too easy, as all you have to do is break a window and wait for them to come to you, and at first that's kind of the case. But the kids end up being stuck there overnight, and once the sun sets, the game gets even creepier, as light is suddenly no longer a guarantee. I also like the mechanic where when a student dies, you take control of one of the other students, and you have to pick up where they left off. So essentially the number of students act as how many lives you have, and it makes the experience a bit more unnerving, as dead students stay dead, and the game also changes slightly depending on which students stay alive until the end. But while Obscure is a decent game that does a lot right, it also has its fair share of problems. First of all, the game has a limited number of save items. Rather than having save points where you can save as much as you want, you have to collect discs in order to save your progress, and each disc can only be used once. The game can appear fairly generous with the discs, but it's really not, as some of the later sections in the game don't have very many at all, and you can easily get stuck if you use too many early on. So if you play this game, use the discs sparingly. Another issue is that the game has a fairly centralized co-op focus, where for much of the game you can be accompanied by another student who is either controlled by a computer or by another player. Part of what makes horror so effective is being alone in a dangerous situation, and this is undermined when you have a buddy tagging along with you. Granted, you don't technically have to have a buddy tagging along with you, but the game is designed in a way that punishes you if you don't. A number of the puzzles can only be solved if two people are present. There are also several monster encounters throughout the game that are next to impossible if you try to take them on alone. But the biggest problem with the game is that the story is complete nonsense. Without going into major spoilers, well okay, I might be going into a couple major spoilers, but I need to. Basically, there's an evil laboratory beneath the school that was conducting illegal and unethical experiments, and that's where the monsters are coming from. This is ludicrous enough as it is, but it also turns out that several of the teachers are aware of this, and the experiments have been going on for decades. And the school has been under suspicion over the years because of the mysterious disappearance of several students. And the cops haven't discovered the secret laboratory because it has the same problem as the Resident Evil games. When it's just trying to be a horror game with monsters, it's pretty effective. But when it tries to offer a logical explanation about where the monsters came from, and fails, it really falls flat. Silent Hill gets a lot of leeway for some of the crazier stuff because the threat is purely supernatural. It defies explanation and doesn't readily conform to logic or reality as we understand it. It effectively pulls off the feeling of being trapped in a nightmare, and as such, it's okay if things don't quite make sense. But games like Resident Evil and Obscure are supposed to take place in real life, and invoke science and conspiracies to explain their monsters. And when you can spot tons of plot holes even before you touch on the nonsense science the game is going for, it really undermines a lot of the tension and fear. Resident Evil 4 gets away with the absurdity of its plot because it keeps up a good pace, is both fun and entertaining, and focuses more on action than on horror. Obscure, on the other hand, is clearly trying to be a serious survival horror game, and it gets a lot right, so it's a shame that the sillier aspects of the plot really bring it down. So in the end, I enjoyed Obscure well enough, but I doubt I'll ever play it again. If you love Silent Hill and are looking for any horror game even slightly reminiscent of it, Obscure is worth a look, but otherwise, I'd say this is one game you can probably skip. My final score is a 6 out of 10. Another case of great concept, lackluster execution. So what do you think? Have you played Obscure? What did you think of it? Whatever you think, be sure to let me know in the comments below. If you like what I do, feel free to subscribe and follow me on Twitter. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.